All right, good evening once again. So basically we are still on data selection techniques slash data filtering with Python. So these are some of the, I know we stopped at, we have actually applied so many data filtering or data selection techniques. As you can see here, the last one was a sorting. But before we arrived at the sorting, this was not the main data set. We were able to pick, pick 1, 2, 3 headers. That is the employee's name, the departments, the salary, the basic salary from salary payroll data sets, which align with the type of analysis we are performing. You know, if you can still remember, I told us that data analysis with Python can be grouped into three main aspects. The first aspect is where you perform your data inspection, your data cleaning, which we have gone past. And then the second phase is where you understand how to perform analysis that falls under what we call filtering. You know, even from Excel, data filtering is simply the art of picking certain parts of your data or displaying a certain part of your data based on the specified criteria. So we have learned several techniques. At least by now we know how to call out a header and its values from a data set. That is how we called out these three headers. And I know we concatenated at some points, which we have also treated. So just to highlight it more, or just to perform at least one of the selection techniques that we have covered. So let's assume, let me call the main data. Let me look for the main data name. I think the main data name is data3. So for instance, if I call back data3, and out of this data3, let's assume that my analysis says that I should pull out department and then or pull out what? Basic salary. Using one of the selection techniques, I told us that you can just type the name of the data, and then if the description of that header is 2 words or 3 words, once it exceeds 1 word, and there is space in between the 2 words, probably describing that header, I told us that you cannot use dots. You cannot use dots. In other words, I've exposed us to 2 different ways. You can actually select or pull out an entire header and its value from the data set. So if I want to call out department is just a 1 word header description. So that kind of scenario, I can just say, call the name of the data, then add the dots and spell it the way it is in the data set like this. This should be able to what? To bring out what? The entire department and its values. Now, supposing I want to call this, I just want to reverse this before I continue from where I stopped. Supposing I want to call out basic salary, you can see that basic salary has 2 words, basic and salary. But unfortunately, or luckily, we have already added underscore. But what we do not know is whether Python has acknowledged the whole of that basic underscore salary as a single word. But if, for example, you have a data set like that, and you have not modified the header, you have not added the underscore, or you have not merged them together, I told us that, and you still want to bring the whole of that header and its values out, you can now use this method, data3, then you use the square brackets. So whenever you enter the square bracket, what you are telling Python is that you want to pull out a portion of an entire data set. So you now define it as a string. You have to put it in quotes, and then before you add the header. So let me just go. So let me go and copy it from the data set to avoid typographical errors. So I will just highlight it, Control C. And then let me go back to where I am entering the formula. And then you paste. So if I run this, you can see that what this pulls it out. Well, let me try the first method I use, that is using the period, data3. If I just say this, then if you run it, you see that what it still work, which means that the underscore has been what recognized. But what I'm saying is that Adibi, you have not added the underscore before doing this. This dot will not work where you have two words. You have to fall back to putting it, selecting it as a string. You have to use this method. So what I've used it to explain to us is that whenever you want to select an entire column or entire column and its values from a data set, you either use the dot method, which is the period method, or you use the square brackets and recognize it as a string inside the quotation, and then that will enable you to call out the required data. But remember, I also emphasize that when you select like this, yes, you have an output, but you cannot tell us that this output is acknowledged as a data frame that you can make reference to subsequently. So for that reason, I can decide to store each of the selection in different variable so that I can either concatenate them later to form a new data set that I want to analyze, or maybe in the course of the analysis, I can just involve it. So I can just say, okay, maybe data 4, and then put equals to here. So for each time you pull out certain aspects, you store it in a different data set. That is the professional practice, because at that point you have acknowledged that this one is just an output. So once you cannot reuse it, like this one now, is just an output. You cannot reuse it because it has not been taken and stored in a different variable like this one that I just did now. So the best practice requires that each time you call out this, learn to store them in a different word, data frame, so that anywhere I am working, I can say data 4. I can say what? Data 4, and then I will have access to it, unlike the other one that you just display. All right, so I just have to do that revision to bring us together, and then before we start from there. So now that the next topic we want to look at is data analysis with log and iLog. That is where we are starting from tonight. So I just hope that we finish this session like I promised last time. So I will know that the next class we are entering data aggregation, which is one of the most useful aspects of application of Python for financial analysis. So we are looking at this data analysis with lock and iLock functions. Data analysis with lock and iLock. So let me convert this to a plain text in order to demarcate where I'm starting from today. Remember, I have already showed us some techniques. So I'll come to where I have this code, and then I'll select what? Markdown. And then I'll press Shift and Enter 2 times. And that will convert it to a note text like this. Right? So these are part of techniques we have learned from the beginning. So now let's quickly look at what is lock. What is lock? And what iLock. So let me start with the lock, because these are some of the valid function we can use in the place of all those selection techniques that we have been adopting. Now, the lock is not an acronym. It's not an abbreviation. That is how we know it. You can research later. You will notice that they will not give you any full definition for it, as in the L represents something, the O represents something, the C represents something. That is how we know it in Python. And what does that mean? So the lock is a label base. Let me try and see if I can tap fast. Is a label. Is a label based approach. It's a label based approach that allow the selection of rows and columns by taking in the labels, that is the rows and the column name. Let me see if I can break it here. That is the rows and column names. So that is what lock. Now, I want to simplify something. When we say label base, the label in this context is talking about the headers. So for example, just for me to show us the label. So if I want to bring out the label, it's part of what we have learned. So I can just say what? Data 3. I can just say data 3 dot column. Data 3 dot column. So you see all these employees name, employees ID, states, sex, department, status, all these, they are the labels. So what we are saying is that this lock and iLock, they are Python known functions which can be used to select what? Data in row and columns. Now, if you are selecting an entire column values based on its label, now you understand what is called label. Because the last time we did something like this, when we did data 3, then dot departments, you actually selected this based on the label. This is label-based selection because you use the header to pull out what? The value. So this type of selection, alternatively, you can use the lock in as much you are using the name of the header to call it out. That is what we mean by what? The lock. So let's quickly take some example of it before we look at the iLock. So let's look at this. So I'll draft it as a task given to us. So let's assume that we are given this task that using the log function. Call out the department values. Now, the syntax will be, you call the name of the data set, which is data 3 in this case. Then you will now concatenate using the dots and the log. Then you will now select, because we want to pull out only certain portion from the data set. So we use the square bracket, and then you put your column, then you put your comma. Then you can now call the header, which is what? Department. So you can see that if I do not understand the logic, that other syntax method, where I did not define any function, then I have no choice than to use this. But if it's just to call out the values in the department, for me, I consider log as a long process, because the same thing that we just did, data 3 dot what depth, and it came out, is what we are writing the whole of this long code. So if I run it, you see that what this same thing that we achieved the other time is what we just achieved now. But this time around, we use what? The log. Because when you use syntax is where you just said data 3 dot department, or data 3 square bracket string what? Department. That one, you are not using a known function. Instead, you are using logic. So if somebody asks us now that which function did we deploy to get this, I'm going to say I use log. But if somebody asks me when I just said data, when I just did data 3 dots basic salary, which function did I use? I will tell the person that I use what? Logic. So that is what we are saying. So I'm only trying to give us these other options. So if you don't want to use that logic, you can use the known function, which is log, in as much you are relying on the label to call out what? The value. So I want to know if we understand what I just explained. Hope it's clear to us. Is that clear?
No, it's not clear.
Okay, who else is not clear to? Let me know if anybody has understood it.
No, it's not clear.
Okay, those of you that is not clear to, can you speak out from where you are not clear with? Is it just the iLog or the logic method? See, both of them you not understand? Let me know.
Yes, both of them.
Both of them. Okay,
Yes.
so if it is both of them, then this time around, just make sure you open your eyes very well. Now look at it here. Let's say we have, number one, just understand the topic that we are treating. Because some of us, we have not practiced the previous class, it is normal for all this to look like abracadabra. Now, the topic is data selection and filtering techniques. That is, we are learning how to select certain part of our data if there is a need. So that is what we are playing around. Now, we have data 3. Pay attention now. We have data 3. Data 3 has this number of headers. Look at them here. In data 3, you have a header or a column named employee's name. You have another one named what? Employee's ID. Now, if you are given a data set like this to analyze as a data analyst, and you want to bring out only the values under employees ID, for example, and then you now bring out maybe the ones under basic salary. You will now join them together using the concatenation and the joining method we have learned to form a different data set. Or the task is just that from the whole of this data set, pull out this. There is a reason for it. Maybe you want to focus on it, or maybe you want to save it as a different data set from this whole data set where you have it. That is the motive. So we need to understand what we are actually trying to achieve. So for me to call out this, for me to separate this, to pull out this from this whole data set is what we are using the lock and the logic concept to achieve. So I first of all started with, if I don't want to use lock, I can simply call the name of that data set where I have that heading that I want to pull out the whole of that employees IDs from, and then I'll put dots, and then I'll go and copy the heading. If you can write it, fine, but I prefer copying to avoid typographical error. So you now come to that data set and highlight it, Control C, and then go back to where you are writing your code, paste it, Control V, and then if I hit Shift and Enter, we call it out. So, Mrs. Jane, is it clear to you now? And Mr. Collins. Let me get a feedback. Is this one clear first before I bring in the iLock? Because this is where I started from.
Okay, is clear, but I still want to understand why we are using that lock.
Why were you,
Because
you understand this one, right?
yes, I
That why we
understand.
are using that lock is an alternative, just like we are learning the same thing, but in different ways. So in case you forget one, because this is, you are learning. So since you are learning, there are times that you'll be given some stubborn data where you try to use this dot and it's not working based on the structure. So you will not say, okay, let me try using the lock method. That is the essence of giving you this as an alternative. And for you to also know, in case you go for an interview and they ask you that, what do we do with lock function in Python, or what is lock function is all about, so that you'll be able to know that, oh, there is a function called what? Lock. So that is one of the reasons. I hope it's clear to you now.
Yes.
Mr. Collins. Mr. Collins, I hope it's also clear to you. I want to be sure of this one first. Mrs. Oikosi, I hope all is also well. So
Yes, I've done it.
Okay, so what I would advise us is, since we are journeying with our laptop, you just that if I give you the time now, if I give you 5 minutes, you end up using 1 hour or 30 minutes. So you go and sit down with the video and update. That was the instruction I gave the other time. If I want to follow the instruction I gave, I will have shifted this class. You know, some of us, when we shift the class, you get angry, but you don't know that it's for your own good. If I have requested that, if you have not gotten to where I stop, I will not continue this night. Some of you will grumble that we should continue, we should continue, we should continue. So please, I'm giving this as an assignment now. You see, go and sit down with the previous video. Run all the analysis, even if you are not using the same data. Construct your equivalent tags from the data you have there. Like in this data now, I am calling employees ID. If you are using a different data set, use another header there just to perform the same analysis. So I will expect that every one of you must have run all the code from the beginning where we started looking at data selection or filtering techniques down to where I'm going to stop in this section before I continue on Thursday. So once I open the charts and I ask you to preview your screen, even if it is one person that have not done it, that class will be postponed till next week. So everybody make sure that you do it and do not deprive others from having their class because of you not doing it. I would not want to listen to any excuse. So do everything you can between now and tomorrow to run your analysis, because most of these things is, if you have gotten to where I am now and as I'm experiencing some break now, like you can see Mrs. Oyikosi have taken advantage of this time you are using to ask questions, and she has deployed it. So that is the best way we can understand this, particularly those of us that are lacking behind because of our installation. Take your time to see how, deny yourself, just take a night or a whole afternoon. Sit down with it, upgrade yourself fast to where we are, because if you not get to where we are, this whole thing will be choking you. That is just it. All right, so please, let's take our time to do that. Now, let me just do the iLog again. Sorry, the lock. So, like I was trying to establish, supposing you try this option, definitely it's going to happen. It's going to happen because from experience it has happened. Where you try selecting using these dots, you see it not working. But by the time you deploy another logic that you know, which could be the lock, you will not see it working. So that is why, in as much there is a backup for this, know it as well. Don't say because it's long, you don't want to do it. So using the iLog, I told us that you will just simply type the name of the data, which is data 3. Then you will now put the dots, you will now type log. Now you put the square bracket because you are pulling a section of your data. And then you put this column and comma. This is a constant, what I've typed now, that column, comma. You maintain it like that first before you reference the header. So you reference the header, which is this, inside this. And now you can now what? Run it. So either way. Now that will not take us to iLog. iLog is very important. You will see something that those logic could not do, that iLog is going to do for us now. You know, it look as if we are repeating what we are able to achieve easily. But in the case of iLog, you also have alternative, but let me show you what you will do. If I don't know iLog, and I want to achieve what I want to achieve with iLog, just like the way I demonstrated this one. If I don't know log, then I should know this method. So if I don't know iLog, because iLog is data selection using the integer base, not label base. But we are going to understand it, but let me just show us what you should know in case you don't want to apply iLog. If I want to, from this same data 3, I want to be going up and down. From this data 3, look at this. From this same data 3. Let's say I want to call out employee's name, employee's ID, and basic salary at once, not picking them one. I will now start concatenating or journey. Then I have a logic, and then I'll also show you how you can achieve it with what iLog. So just make sure that you pay attention. What are the headers we are picking? We are picking employee's name, we are picking employee's ID, and then we are picking what? Basic salary. 3 of them at once, without us picking them one after the other. Not using iLog, but that is where you need iLog. but I want to show all the logic method first. So if I want to, let me make it as a task. Using logical method. Using logical method, select, what are the headings again? Employees name, right? Employees name and the employees ID, and then basic salary. These three headers, I want to call out their value at once using logic. You know, when you code one, you just did something like this, data 3, and then you just do square brackets, you just do square brackets, and then we just type in one of them. Let me just call department because I can easily get this one. And then when you press shift and enter, then it brought out only this. But now we want to call out 2 or 3 at once. So in that case, the syntax will no longer be one square bracket. This is what you do. The first square bracket, another square bracket inside. The moment you are selecting more than one at once, you use what? 2 square brackets. So this is just like lists, Python lists in another list. So now you will now use the quotation, the string, and use comma to separate them inside the second square bracket. So let me go and pull out what this. In fact, this is considered instead of me going up, because most of the techniques we have learned, we need to start applying them. So instead of me going up, before I do this, let me quickly bring out the headings. Or I will just bring it out here. Let me quickly add another one above. Is it above or under? Okay, it should be under. Wanted to achieve something. Hope this one is not still taking my time. Okay. So now let me bring out the header so I don't have to be going to the data before I copy. That is what I want to do now. So I will just say from data 3, call out all the columns. Call out all the columns. Good. So they are now closer to where I am now. So all these techniques we are learning, you can see that you are not, learning them in vain. You can see that at some point you are employing them to get something done easily. So now I want to copy the first heading so I can easily pick it from here now. Instead of me going to the data, Control C, and then put it here. Then I'll put a comma while I am still inside that square bracket, the inner one. Then we also said that we are picking this one, Control C, and then come back here, Control V, and then comma. The next one I said we are picking is basic salary. Basic salary, Control C, and then also acknowledge that as a string. So by the time I run this code, you see that what 3 of them are pulled out at the same time. This is what I want to achieve with iLock. So what I'm trying to do is that I'm giving us the logical aspects and also giving you the known Python function for doing some of these things we are doing logically as an alternative. If you forget one, you remember the other one. So I want to ask, did we understand this method of calling multiple headers at once? Let me get a response before I proceed. I'm asking, I need a response at least from one person before I proceed.
I understand it too.
Okay, let me also hear from Jane and Co. Jane and Collins. Is this clear?
Yeah, so it's clear, but all these things is
Mm.
something that will, but that I need to master because
Yes.
yeah, this all this formula of a thing, it's well.
What have put your formula of it? Formula they give
Yeah,
you
now
headache.
because I'm not familiar with those items, as in with those terms now. All these
Yes.
that dot and
Yes.
kind of.
Yes. Nobody is familiar with them among you here. That is why you are here. If you have learned it, you will not be here. So you are just learning it now. So like you said, now it is when you practice that you will understand it. But just make sure that you know the analysis tasks, because what matters is, as a data analyst, what are you doing? What tasks are you performing? And that is why, if you check very well, I am bringing them as a kind of a word problem, and we are providing word solution. And I say using logical methods, select employee. So which means that we are asked to call out three word headers values from the main data. And the reason could be that the analysis you want to perform, you only need the employee's name, the employee's ID, and basic salary. So why working with the whole of that data? So you see the logic now. So as a data
Yeah.
analyst, I am given the whole of that data, and the assignment of my own part of analysis is to summarize. For example, now when we start the next category of analysis now, is to maybe the company want to know the total basic salary per each of the departments. So I can just call out the department, call out the employee's name, call out the basic salary, just like where I called out these three values. And then I will now make this a different data set. So which means that I will now say, for example, if this is the data I want to analyze, not that one where I pull them from, I will now say final data. Then I will now say equals to. So which means that if I run this now, going forward, those three headers value has formed a different data set that I can call anytime. So I can come here and type what? FI, hit the tab
Network.
button on my keyboard, TAB, and then it will call out what? The keyword. Then I'll pick the one I just created now, which is this. And then if I run it, you see that what? It brings out what? A data set or frame with just what? Those three headers. So this is actually what I want to do. I'm given that data, and I feel that no, my analysis will not go with all the headers. So let me bring out the headers that I require and save them as a different data. Then before I can start my analysis. For example, now I can say, okay, I want to run counting on this. I can say what? Dot counts. I can say dot counts. All right, so if I run it now, you see that what? I have got to what? Count analysis. It pick each of the headers and tell me the total number of what? Record in there. Did you understand it now? So there are
Yes.
reasons why you are carving these values from that data. And one of them is what I just displayed now. So the most important thing is for you to understand the story. We call that what? Data story. That is what is important. Why are you doing this? What do you want to achieve? Because we are not just learning data selection. We are learning how we are looking at what are the challenges tomorrow if I'm employed as a data analyst in a company. And the company will give you different data from different sources. And then at some point they will say, okay, call out the column in one data A. Then bring out another value in data B. Bring out another column in data C. Then merge them together and do your analysis with those values only. That is where you will need something like this, because you will load the three different data sets first. Then you will now be calling out the headers from each of them. Then you will now what? Join them together. That is why we learned concatenation and what? Data journey. I don't know if I have made sense with what I just explained now.
Yes.
So that is just this. So the only thing is that is why I'm insisting that before I continue, everybody must get there. What is happening to you now is normal. You are even trying because you lost out from you and the colleagues. If you have been applying all this while, you will not even have issue. So like you said, just make sure that you sit down with the videos and then watch it, apply everything, pick the next video, watch it. After all, you were in those classes. The only thing is that you have not practicalized them. So I don't think you have issue. All right. So now this same thing that I just achieved with this logical method, I want to use iLog to achieve it. So what is the definition of iLog? Why I am giving us the logical method so that you can value the log. You will see the technique, the iLog we use. So remember that in case you want to write down the definition of what iLog. So we said log is a label-based approach of selecting data value either in a column or in a row, while iLog is an integer base. iLog is what? An integer base approach. Integer based approach that also allow data selection. Also allow data selection of rows and column. So the difference is this. Here we are going to use 0. We are going to use 1. We are going to use 2. We are going to use 3. Because that is integer. So let me show us the logic. What is the task? What exactly do you want to achieve as a data analyst? So this is the task. Using the iLog function, call out the first column in data 3. Yeah, in data 3. So let's look at data 3. Data 3, I want to scroll up. So this is what? Data 3. To look at data 3, you want to call out what? Employee's name. Now, sometime when we are learning Python, as in pure Python, you were taught that when you have an array of items in Python, the very first one is at what number? Let me get a response. I want to know whether you are still with me. The very first, like the whole of this column now, is what? At what number? We are not looking at this. So it's at what?
0.
0. Good. Now, this employee is at what number? 1. While here is at what number? 2.
2.
Here is what? 3. So iLog is data selection using integer base, which means that what? Each of the column has a numerical what? Positioning. So what I'm going to do is to use that to call out what? Anyone I want. So let's see how we apply it. So if I come here now, the syntax is that you call the name of the data, you also concatenate, that is a period, and then you type the iLog, and then you put your square brackets, and then remember those constants, semicolon, colon, and comma. Whenever you are working with log and iLog, Once you have entered the name of your data and you put the dots, then the function, once you open the square bracket, make sure that you quickly add that colon and comma and width. You know that, oh, I have typed a constant. Then after that, let's say I want to call out only this. I will put 0 here. So if I run this now, look at this. It brings out what? Only what? Employee's name. So you can see what I was trying to show us now. Now, but the logic method I use, I call out 3 of them. So now I can now say 0 to, that is, I want to start, we call this slicing from the column at 0 to column at 4. So if I put 4 here now, and I run this code again, you see that what? It brings out what? 4 of them at a time. So I want to ask you, this one is shorter than the other one, isn't it? This particular one, I prefer using iloc when I want to call multiple heading. Compared to this, look at this. Look at this line of code. Which one is shorter? You know, that is what we are trying to, that's what you just achieve with what? iloc now. Instead of you calling the column name, where you can make mistake if you attempt to type them. Maybe supposing I did not go to the data set to copy the headers now. If I try typing them, sometimes you can make what? Typographical error. But when you are dealing with iloc, you don't need to bother yourself because you are representing everything with what? Number. So I prefer this one because it's shorter and easier compared to what? Using the logical method.
Yes.
Any question? Jay, you want to say something?
No, I say yes, this one is better.
Okay, don't they smile, cause more. I know you very well now. You understand? So, so I'm giving all this alternative. There's no way you forget all. Make sure that you have all these things in your memory. The truth is that most of these things that you are learning now, when you start working with company, that's when you remember what you are doing. And that is why I advise you to be writing down your notes. Even as you are going to be watching that video, take it as a class. Take your Bible and your book. As you are applying it, you are documenting it. As you are applying it, you are documenting it. Because tomorrow, you might be looking for one of them. So that is lock and iloc. So that will now take us to another topic, which is still under data selection or filtering. Now, and I want to quickly point out why we cannot stop here. If you look at what we are selecting since, we are just selecting everything in a column. There's no way we can say that, okay, we want to display only record from Edu under this word 3 header. You can see that the lock and the iloc and even those logic that we are using, none of them can give us that kind of selection. Because what each of them are doing is call out everything in any specified column. What about if the analysis question says, yeah, from the whole of data 3, we want to see only record from Edo. We want to see only record from Anambra. We want to see only record from Delta. We want to see only record from Imo. You cannot use lock. You cannot use iloc. You cannot use any of those what? Logical method. So that will now advance us to another type of what? Data selection or data filtering. And that is the topic that I'm bringing now. So here I will label it properly. So this is just like, this is the proper filtering. And this type of filtering I am going into now, this is one of the filtering that you cannot do without. This one is going to answer most of your analysis question or tasks. So, what is it called? Filtering. Filtering of data. What we are doing since is just like selection. We are not filtering. We are pulling everything. So there is a thin line separating selection and filtering, they are not the same. Selection, I can pick everything. But filtering, as the name implies, you filter out some things. So filtering of data. So I will also make it a kind of a capital header. And how will I achieve that? I will come to where I have code while I'm in that cell and then select what? Mark down and then press shift and enter 2 times. So you can see each time I'm introducing a new topic, I am using this type of what? Tests. So if you are working in an organization, you have to be what? Separating where you start a particular type of analysis is very important. So it will help you to organize your. So just to explain, another powerful feature of Pandas is the ability to filter data according to a predefined criteria or threshold. Let me see if I can type it so that can slow us down a little. Another word, powerful feature. So all these are functions we are consulting from that library called Pandas. I believe you still know what is called Pandas. Is the ability to filter data according to a predefined criteria or threshold. So now this type of data filtering is the one that helps us to filter out certain information. Filter them out so that you can gain concentration on the required information you want to see that particular time. So for example, analysis tasks. For example, if, let me call out, okay, let me write the task from the data3 data frame. We want to see only records from which department will I pick now? From operation department. Operation what? Department. So if I call out the data3, this is it, data3, so that we can see it together. This is the data3. So that you can understand the communication. So we have under data3, we have different departments. We have operation, we have marketing, we have audit. They are all in the same data set. And you are asked to, we want to see only what? Operation and store it in a different data set. You want to see marketing and store it in a different data set. So that can be your analysis task. So now how do we answer the question? Let me go up. I brought out the data so that we know the communication, right? So the syntax is going to be, the syntax here is a bit logical. Just pay attention. So I will create a different, because we are not just calling it out. We don't want to just see only operations department record. We want to take them and store them in a different data set. So that particular new data, I'll give it a name. So I can just say, okay, let's say filter. In fact, I will use the name based on the kind of value I want to filter out. I can say operation, so that to be clear to the operation equals to. Now, the name of the data where you want to filter out based on that criteria. operation is what? Data 3. Then concatenate it with the header containing that value, which is what? That operation that you want to use as the criteria for filtering this data is under department. So you bring in the department the way it is. Right? Then you now say equals to, that is where department is equals to. Remember I've taught you before that 2 equals to mean what? Equality. While 1 only represents what? Assignment. So what we are saying is that from data 3, under department, if a value is equals to, then you call that value. To avoid error, just go and highlight it and copy it. Control C, and then you put it inside. So if I run this now, it means that what? All the operations record in this data 3 will be captured and stored in what? Operations. So anytime I'm asked, okay, let's see only record from operation, I'll just call the what? The operation. So now, but for us to call it, we'll go to the next line. We will now, so what has happened, this is where is a bit logic now. Just pay attention, you understand the logic. What we are saying is that from, if you look at this now, look at where you have this operation. Before you come across another operation, you must have gone down. Definitely you come across another operation. It's under. In other words, all the operations in this data, they are not arranged sequentially or serially. They are scattered all over the data. So what this syntax will do, what this one will do is that it will make sure that all the operations are assembled in one place. The one that is at 100 will come and join the one at what? Like 0. All of them will be in one place. But they will be assembled in a segment within that data, which means that they are still in that data. But this time around, they are no longer scattered. They are in one part of that data. So that is why we want to use the logic. So since we have acknowledged that, oh, they are still in the data, but they are assembled in one section. So, which means that if we want to see them, we call that data. We say what? We call that data, which is what? Data 3. Data 3. They will now say, okay, from data 3, give me this section that I have already assembled. So you now copy it. From data 3, give me that section. Using one of the selection technique, I'll put square bracket, and then I will put this in the square bracket without quoting it. Why? Because it's an existing what? A variable. So the logic here is that we cannot just call operation like we have been calling. We have to say that, okay, we understand that this line must have assembled all the operation, but they are still within the data. So we say, okay, let's acknowledge that data and then pull out what? That segment. That is the meaning of this. So if I run this now, you will see that what? We have only, let's see whether we get the value. Now you can see that what? We call out the entire data set, but this time around under department, what can you see? Only what? Operations. Only operations. Only operations. So what we have done is that we have filtered out all the departments except what? This. So if I want to know how many of them are there, I will just add what? .count. I will run it, then it will take each of the column and tell me the total number there. We have 42. So I'll go to my PowerPoint where I am writing my executive report and say, after my analysis, I discovered that we have 42 transactions where, or we have 42 transactions from operation what? Departments. So I just did that counting just for us to know how many of them. But if I don't want it, I just what? Leave it like this. Because what we are interested in is what? Is how to filter. So that is for That is for operation. What about if you want to, you are looking for a particular statistics. So maybe there is a particular decision the organization want to make, and maybe there's a particular amount of money they want to spend. They want to reinvest, and they are looking at operation department and maybe which other department again, marketing department, and they want to find out their current strength or current performance, so that they know how to distribute the fund. So that means you will do for just 2. So you now go, now we have done for operation, and we discover that there are 42. So if I should go and do for marketing now, then I will do the counting, and then I will know how many of them. Then I will submit my reports. So this is the second time I'm going to do it now. So I'm asking that same question, but this time around I'm using what? Marketing. So I will say, okay, marketing, so that we can understand it. Marketing equals to the name of the data set where we want to filter out marketing department is data 3. Concatenate it with what? The header where you have that marketing, which is the same department, the way it is, equals to, just equal it to what? The marketing, the way the marketing is spelled. In fact, I don't like typing this. I always like to copy from the data to avoid error. So let me go to where I have marketing for the filter and copy one. Okay, yeah. So that is capital letter Ultra. So let me just take this one. Control C. So I'll paste it here. Then, like I told you, you cannot come down and just call marketing. Because what we have also done here is that all the marketing record, they are now in one segment within the data. So you are now saying, okay, from that data, bring out that segment. So you now say what? From data 3, select, then you now copy where you must have stored them, which is this, Control C, and then paste it Control V here. So if I run it now, let's check. You see that we have only marketing. Like I said, the reason why you are doing this is that the company want to invest, and they have asked you to analyze the statistics between marketing department and operation. They want to know the current performance of these 2 departments that are involved in their investment. So what we are going to do here now is just to do that same counting. Remember that you must have done the other counting, and you have noted your findings to be 42 of them. Now, if I do the same thing here now, if I come here and say dot count, I want to know how many of them, dot count. And then if I run it, you see that 36. So I will submit my report that after my analysis, I discovered that operation has 42, while marketing have 36. So if you are the one that want to invest money, let's say this is not salary payroll, this is like sales inventory. This is just like a particular product. Which one do you think is doing better? Somebody should unmute and tell us.
42 now.
So it's about the communication. What exactly are you looking for? So you must not forget the essence of our being, which is deriving insights that can help in making quality decisions. So all these assume analysis that we are doing now because we are performing them just in case we are asked to do something of this nature, then we will have known how to go about it. Any question? So I'll just take one more. I think we cannot actually complete this because people are yet to practice. We still have like 3 to 4 data selection techniques. So maybe I'll just stop here. On Thursday, I'll finish it in order to allow them to get to this place before we finish up everything. I'll stop here. I think that is okay.
Yes.
Because some persons are not practicing. So let us allow them to go and master to this very states. Mr. Collins, hope you are still here. Collins and Jane, please.
Yes, sir.
Whatever
Yes, sir.
it takes you, please, I'm begging. Whatever it takes you, sit down with the video of, I think we've had how many classes on this data selection? I think this is the third one or second one. Make sure you load in data set. It may not be this particular data set. Sometimes I even like people, getting different data sets, because the truth of it is that if you learn all these things with one data set, you don't really know it that much, because your ability to relate all these techniques on different data sets is what really matters. Because tomorrow you will not expect that it's only one company you will analyze data for. And you cannot tell me that the 3, 4, 5 companies that will give you data to analyze will give you the same type of data. That's why even as we are learning, that's why you were taught how to go to Kaggle. When you are done with one data, go to Kaggle, get another one. That will deepen how you understand different data structure, how you can deploy all these techniques on different data. It's very important. There are some assignments that you must not wait for your instructor to give you. Just give yourself. Like now, I'm working with the salary payroll now. It wasn't with the salary payroll. You can use the healthcare. We have other header there. So where I am choosing marketing, maybe under healthcare, we have a doctor, we have hospital. So you now do okay, I want to know how many hospital, how many patients this certain hospital attended to. All these are insights you can derive. So I want to stop here. I'll see us on Thursday. See us on Thursday. Or do we have any question? Any question? I think everything.
Sir, please, this one is not a question. Oh, please, those data you sent to me, I did not see supermarket sales there.
You are supermarkets. You like supermarkets too. You like supermarket. You like the supermarkets. Very well. Don't worry. Just keep disturbing me tomorrow, not this night. Keep sending
Okay, well, I
messages.
would have loved to do something tonight, so with it. But it's
Now that one now you want to work with the one you have now. You want to start waiting till you get supermarkets before you see that Thursday will come. I pray that you will not be the reason why that class will not hold.
No, I will not be, provided you send it on time. I will not be.
Don't depend on supermarkets. In fact, let me even find it now. Send the stuff. Let me find it, because that is what you want to use as an excuse. So I'm looking for it. I will send it before I shut down my laptop. Good night.
Okay, good night. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.